hoping on the SMR file specifically, we'll have some discussion essentially about how we are really looking towards the future of providing electricity for our residents in Saskatchewan, but working collaboratively to provide affordable, clean electricity for other Canadians as well. Alberta is part of that partnership as well, and when we look at the forecast for electricity usage in Saskatchewan across Canada in 5, 10, and 15 years, we're going to need more. And so as we find our way through, utilizing the life cycle of the facilities that we have, but then transitioning to quite likely nuclear. We don't have a lot of other choices in Saskatchewan. It's a cleaner choice, and we want to make sure that we're working with other provinces to make it as affordable as possible.
Have you had any discussions about equalization here?
Briefly, and we likely will as we go along. It is a formula that I think is very flawed across the nation with what it doesn't include in the formula itself, and what we see happening across Canada today as our economies change, as just things change globally. I think it most certainly is time for either a very frank discussion about equalization and how the equalization formula works, what it does include, what it doesn't include, but to have a collaborative discussion as well, because we are one federation within Canada, and we do want to ensure that we're working together to support one another.
Could you explain why it doesn't work for Saskatchewan?
For Saskatchewan, well, one, it does include many of the ways in which Saskatchewan residents create wealth in our communities through the industries that we have. There's other provinces where those are not included. There's per capita caps that are involved as well that do have impacts on our province and other provinces as well. And so I think it is a time, and I think you'll hear, likely a couple of other premiers talk very passionately about the equalization formula as well, is to maybe not get rid of the program, but to have a very grown-up conversation and a mature conversation about what the program needs to look like in the future. We had thrown out a year or two ago an opportunity for really a 50-50 plan, where 50% of the equalization dollars are actually redistributed on a per capita basis, and then 50% under the existing formula. That would ensure that all provinces do receive some equalization, but also would ensure that the current formula is still addressing maybe some of the concerns that some provinces might view. So we thought that was a fair proposal, and maybe that's one of the considerations that might come up here today, or maybe the federal government would consider.
Are you considering...
On the carbon tax, I do want to ask you about It was fantastic, and getting to ask you some questions was quite a highlight, sir. I do want to ask you, though, the court injunction. What's happening with the case?
Pardon me?
The court injunction you were supposed to be...
Yeah.
Yeah, so what
what we see is the federal government that's trying to essentially go into our bank account and garnish money, take money out of our bank account. There was an approach as to should we find a negotiated settlement through this? And we said most certainly, but that negotiated settlement would include you not garnishing or taking dollars out of the provincial bank account, which is constitutionally just not on either. And so, we look forward to those negotiations going well, the federal government not garnishing from the province of Saskatchewan, and actually having the conversation or the case heading towards the tax courts, which is what should be happening in this case. What we would rather see is the removal of the carbon tax, the consumer carbon tax on all items. It is largely what is pushing up inflation in our nation and in our province. I think the CPI numbers are out this morning. Us and Manitoba are the lowest. It's the two provinces that I think have taken significant steps in removing either the carbon tax, or in Manitoba's case, some of the fuel tax off of their products. In our case, it's the removal of the carbon tax off our home heating. That is really a part of pushing down our consumer price index, or our inflationary rate in Saskatchewan, to the level that is about half of the national level and one of the lowest in Canada.
Are you proceeding with the injunction, though, sir? My understanding was that by yesterday, Saskatchewan and the federal government was supposed to decide whether you could come to a deal or not.
I think they're still negotiating.
Okay, so right now the injunction is... We would hope to hear more this morning. Yeah. When we're in the early morning on the East Coast, and as we find our way across Canada, I think you'll hear more this morning.
What's the feedback you've had from other premiers on this topic? Is this something they're following closely? Could we see others following your shoes?
Well, I don't think any other premier, and you might want to ask them, would appreciate the federal government garnishing dollars out of their bank account. The Constitution explicitly says that should not be the case. That should never happen. It shouldn't be happening in this case, and I would be shocked if there was another premier that thought that was all right in any case.
And about
One
the
last question here.
asylum seekers, would you be willing to take in more of them, like Quebec is asking you to?
Well, I think this is a topic of discussion that we need to have as premiers as well, because Quebec, Ontario are being impacted, but we've seen in years gone by where that impact has been in other provinces as well, and we may see in months ahead that impact is in other provinces as well. This is a federal opportunity, I think, to limit or stop or support provinces in this space, as immigration is largely in the federal space. But I think this is a discussion that we need to have as provinces, because around our broader economic policy, not just asylum seekers, but ensuring that we are focused as provinces and as a nation on a robust immigration policy. I think new Canadians would appreciate to have that robust immigration policy as well, that many of them found their way through, and not to have people just finding their way into Canada, claiming asylum, and ultimately relying on some of the supports that provinces provide. And we saw the federal government attempt to compensate Quebec to some degree, no other provinces, but attempt to compensate Quebec to some degree. I think, when you look at the permanent residents, the non-Canadian residents, students in our schools and in our communities across the nation, this is another area where we need to have a very mature conversation with our federal government on how do we provide the supports, how do we ensure that we have a robust economic immigration policy in place, and how do we ensure that those supports are shared appropriately between the federal and the provincial levels of government and municipal levels as well.
With the federal government rebranding that rebate, how do you feel about that? Do you think that'll make a difference at all?
Tax is a tax is a tax, man. You can rebrand it all you want. There is no rebranding the carbon tax, and the consumer carbon tax's days are numbered, and the sooner that it's removed from Canadians' fuel bills, their home heating bills across this nation, and their groceries and anything else that it indirectly impacts, the sooner that happens, the better.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much for stopping.